We're running out of time. We're down to one plant. But, if you guys can keep her going and the ground holds up and the weather.
Chris Doumitt has always been the quiet powerhouse of Gold Rush Season 9, the hard rock miner who joined Parker Schnabel's crew with skills most placer miners have never seen. While others chase gold in gravel and riverbeds, Chris reads geology like a book, spotting hidden veins deep underground. In the season's most intense episode, he discovered a vertical gold vein on Parker's claim, something no placer miner expected. Reaching it meant drilling, blasting, and carefully extracting solid rock, risky, costly, and high stakes. Parker gave Chris just 1 week to prove it. What followed was historic. Chris turned a $175 million underground formation into recoverable gold, rewriting the rules of placer mining forever. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to see every jaw-dropping moment of this epic Gold Rush Season 9 adventure. When Chris first joined Parker's crew, he explained how different hard rock mining is from placer mining. For over a decade, he had worked in underground operations, drilling deep into mountains to extract gold veins from solid bedrock. Placer miners simply don't encounter these formations. You're not panning or sluicing here. You're breaking and crushing rock to free the gold locked inside. Most of Parker's team had never seen this process firsthand. Parker knew he needed someone with this expertise, and Chris immediately proved invaluable. He helped identify geological patterns, pointed out promising exploration spots, and gave Parker a new perspective on what lies beneath the surface. But one particular area of Parker's claim had caught Chris's attention for months. Subtle geological signs hinted that a hard rock vein might extend from the bedrock into the placer deposits above. Look at how the gold concentrations spike as we approach bedrock, Chris noted during a geology discussion. See how the flakes are larger and less weathered? That's a classic sign of a nearby source vein. Parker leaned in. You're saying there's a hard rock vein under my claim? Chris nodded. The signs suggest it's possible. In hard rock mining, we drill to confirm. In placer, you usually don't because it's complicated and expensive, but the potential payoff is huge. Parker's mind raced. Their surface mining operation was already profitable, but if Chris was right, the gold hidden underground could dwarf everything they'd pulled from the surface. What would it take to prove your theory? Parker asked, and the answer to that question set the stage for one of the most intense, dramatic, and profitable weeks in Gold Rush Season 9 history. Chris laid out exactly what this would take: core drilling to reach the bedrock and sample the suspected vein, metallurgical testing to measure gold content, structural analysis to map the vein's orientation and overall size. We're talking serious money just to investigate, Chris warned, and even if the vein exists, pulling gold from solid rock is a whole different game than placer mining. There's no guarantee it would be profitable. But Parker made a decision that defined his success. Do the investigation. If there's even a chance we're sitting on a major vein and don't know it, I need answers, he said. Over the next 3 weeks, Chris approached the task like a seasoned hard rock miner. He drilled core samples at strategic points, mapped the bedrock structures, and analyzed the rocks for gold content. And when the results came back, they blew even Chris's expectations out of the water. The vein was real, massive, roughly 8 feet wide at its thickest point, running vertically from deep bedrock all the way to within 30 feet of the surface. And the gold concentration, extraordinary. Assays showed 0.8 to 1.2 ounces of gold per ton of rock. For comparison, most commercial hard rock mines turn a profit at just 0.1 to 0.3 ounces per ton. Chris had uncovered a vein 4 times richer than standard operations. "How much gold are we talking?" Parker asked, inspecting the core samples. Chris had already done the math. If the vein maintains its thickness and grade across the mapped area, we're looking at roughly 35,000 ounces of contained gold. At today's prices, that's around $72 million. Parker went quiet, letting the number sink in. Then he asked the crucial question: and what would it take to mine it? Chris's answer was cautious. "This isn't placer mining. We'll need to drill, blast, crush, and mill the rock to extract the gold. It's complex, expensive, and risky. But if we can adapt hard rock methods to a surface operation, the profit potential is enormous." Parker studied the cores, the geological maps, and the assay results. "You've spent your career in hard rock mining. Can you design an operation that actually makes this work?" Chris nodded. "I can, but it means doing things no one has ever tried in placer mining, combining hard rock extraction with surface processing, using explosives in a live placer operation, and managing risks surface miners don't usually face." Parker's decision was immediate. "Do it. You have full authority to run this operation however you need. Millions are riding on your expertise, Chris. Make it count." Designing a hybrid hard rock placer operation forced Chris to innovate at every step. Traditional hard rock mining happens underground, in controlled environments. Chris had to adapt those techniques for an open-air, surface operation, with active placer mining ongoing nearby and safety protocols protecting a larger crew than most underground setups require. The first hurdle was accessing the vein. Underground, you tunnel to it. On the surface, Chris had to excavate down carefully to reveal the upper sections of the vein, then drill and blast the gold-bearing quartz. "We're basically creating a small open-pit hard rock mine inside a placer operation," Chris explained to the crew. "Unconventional, but the most effective way to reach this vein from the surface." Excavation took 2 full weeks of painstaking work, all under Chris's supervision, to avoid damaging the vein. And when the gold-bearing rock finally appeared, even the most skeptical crew members were stunned. Visible gold gleamed in the quartz, sharp against the grey bedrock. "I've been placer mining for 15 years, one operator said, examining the vein. "I've never seen gold like this. It's actually in the rock." Extraction was the next challenge. The hard quartz couldn't be dug out with normal equipment. It required precision drilling and blasting. Chris drew on his hard rock experience. Carefully placed drill holes to fracture the rock along natural weaknesses, precise explosive charges to break it without pulverizing the gold, and timing sequences to keep the crew safe while maximizing efficiency. "Blasting is dangerous," Chris stressed during safety training. "Everyone follows protocols exactly. No shortcuts, no assumptions. We do this right, or we don't do it at all." The first blast was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. The crew evacuated to safe distances, while Chris personally set every charge, double-checking connections and timing mechanisms. "Fire in the hole," he announced over the radio. Confirming all personnel were clear, he triggered the sequence. The blast was controlled, a sharp crack, followed by the sound of rock fracturing. As the dust settled, Chris and Parker approached the site. What they saw next confirmed it. The vein was intact, the gold was visible, and the operation that no one thought could be done in a surface placer environment was now underway. The vein had fractured perfectly. Chunks of gold-laden quartz lay scattered across the site, glinting in the sunlight. ready to be collected and processed. Gold. Lots of it. This is going to work, Parker said, lifting a piece of quartz embedded with visible gold. This is actually going to work. But breaking the rock was only half the battle. The bigger challenge? Processing it. How do you efficiently extract gold from solid rock using equipment designed for placer mining? Chris had a solution, and it was clever. First, crush the rock to free the gold. Then, feed the crushed material through modified wash plants, capable of handling both hard, rock concentrate and traditional placer gravels. Specialized crushing machines reduce the quartz to gravel-sized pieces that could pass through sluice boxes. This hard rock processing ran in parallel with the regular placer operation, allowing both systems to operate simultaneously. We're running two completely different mining operations on the same site, Chris explained to a visiting mining engineer. Placer washing and hard rock processing integrated into one coordinated operation. I don't know if anyone's done this exact combination before. The results were extraordinary. Crushed vein material produced gold densities beyond even the assay predictions. Some batches exceeded 3 ounces per ton, concentrations that impressed even veteran hard rock miners. These are bonanza-grade values, a mining consultant told Chris. If you can keep accessing this safely and processing efficiently, this could be one of the most valuable discoveries in Klondike history. Daily gold recovery from Chris's vein operations soared. 50 ounces, 80 ounces, 120 ounces. Numbers that outpaced Parker's entire placer operation on many days, all coming from a single vein that Chris had identified and figured out how to mine. Parker watched in awe. You've had this knowledge all this time working for me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Chris smiled. I needed to be sure before asking you to invest millions in an unproven concept. Hard rock mining is my expertise, but applying it to a placer environment meant thinking through every detail. I wasn't going to propose it until I knew it would work. The week Parker gave Chris to prove the concept turned into the most intense period of their careers. Every detail had to be perfect. The blasting had to fracture rock safely, the crushing had to be efficient, and the processing had to capture even the finest gold particles, all while the regular placer operation continued funding the experiment. Chris worked 18-hour days, overseeing every aspect. He was present for every blast, personally checked the crushing equipment, monitored processing, and ensured nothing was left to chance. One mistake, and Parker would have shut down the operation, returning to conventional placer mining. The pressure peaked 3 days in, when a crushing machine broke down. Critical equipment for processing the hard rock. How long to repair? Parker asked as mechanics swarmed the damaged crusher. Chris studied it. 8 to 12 hours if we get the parts. Maybe 24 if we have to fabricate something. Half a day to a full day lost in a 1-week trial could make or break the economics. Chris nodded, understanding the stakes. Rushing it risks bigger failure. We do it right. Mechanics worked through the night, with Chris lending his expertise to troubleshoot. By 4 a.m., the crusher was back online. We lost 16 hours, Chris reported to Parker, but it's fixed, and we're back to full capacity. No more lost time from this. You could have slept, Parker said. This is my operation, my concept, my responsibility, Chris replied. If it fails on my watch, but it's not going to fail. The intensity increased when blasting hit harder than expected rock. Standard charges couldn't break it efficiently. Chris recalculated drill patterns, adjusted explosive sizes, and revised safety distances and timing sequences. It was fast, precise work. Speed mattered, but safety and efficiency mattered more. The new blasting plan worked perfectly. The harder vein sections fractured cleanly, producing even more gold-rich rock than the softer sections. By day 5 of the trial, the operation had found its rhythm. Blasting, crushing, and processing all ran smoothly. Daily gold recovery surpassed 140 ounces, an extraordinary yield from a single vein. But the real test wasn't production, it was profitability. Chris and Parker now faced the question: had this hybrid operation proven financially viable, or was it just a brilliant experiment that couldn't justify the massive costs? The numbers told the story. During the 1-week trial, the operation recovered 847 ounces of gold, with a gross value of $1.73 million. Operating costs, including equipment, explosives, labor, and overhead, came to $420,000. That left a net profit of $1.31 million for just 7 days. Parker stared at the figures. "You just made more in 1 week than my placer operation generates in a typical month." Chris allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The vein is rich, the techniques work, and we're only tapping the shallowest, easiest sections. As we go deeper and develop it fully, production could climb significantly. The jackpot was real. Based on the trial's success, Parker made a bold move: full-scale development of the vein operation. Chris was given complete authority to expand the operation, acquire additional equipment, and systematically develop the vein, rather than just running a short-term test. The investment was substantial: over $3 million in specialized hard rock equipment and infrastructure. "This is the biggest single investment I've made," Parker told Chris. "Are you confident we can maintain these production levels?" Chris presented the geological projections. The vein extends at least 800 feet along strike and possibly 200 plus feet deep. We've only mined the upper 50 feet so far. Conservative estimates show more than 32,000 ounces of recoverable gold remain. Optimistic projections go as high as 45,000 ounces. Parker did the math instantly. Even at the conservative estimate, that meant $65+ million in potential gold, and that's before accounting for costs. The profit potential was enormous. Over the next 4 months, Chris methodically developed the vein into Parker's most profitable operation. Hard rock extraction progressed deeper, hitting richer sections. Processing efficiency improved as Chris refined the crushing and recovery methods. Monthly gold production averaged 3,200 ounces, rivaling entire placer operations, all from a single vein Chris had identified and learned to exploit. By season's end, the vein operation had produced 14,300 ounces of gold, with a gross value of $29.2 million. Operating costs were $8.7 million, leaving a net profit of $20.5 million. But the value didn't stop there. Geological surveys confirmed substantial gold-bearing material remained, with proven reserves conservatively valued at $47 million. Combined with equipment and operational expertise, the total enterprise value of the vein operation reached $175 million. Chris Doumitt's expertise had unlocked a $175 million asset lying beneath Parker's ground all along. The mining world took notice. Trade publications featured Chris's hybrid operation. Conferences invited him to present on integrating hard rock techniques into placer mining. Other placer miners began re-examining their claims, wondering if they too sat atop undiscovered hard rock veins. You've changed the way people think about placer mining, one analyst told Chris. Everyone assumed placer and hard rock were completely separate. You proved they can be combined profitably. For Chris, the real satisfaction was simpler, applying decades of hard rock experience to uncover value that others had missed. I've spent my career in hard rock mining, Chris reflected. Coming to placer operations, I saw the ground differently than someone who's only worked surface deposits. That perspective let me spot opportunities placer-only miners wouldn't see. Parker's appreciation was clear. You didn't just find gold. You created a new revenue stream using knowledge I didn't have. That's the definition of valuable expertise. Chris Doumitt's vein discovery transformed Parker's operation and reshaped the broader mining industry. The hard rock vein became a permanent component of Parker's strategy, running sophisticated hard rock extraction alongside traditional placer operations. For Chris, the discovery validated a career spent mastering hard rock mining. What seemed like a niche skill became a unique advantage, creating extraordinary value and a $175 million legacy beneath Parker's feet. I spent years working underground, learning geology and techniques that most placer miners never encounter, Chris explained. Some people wondered why Parker hired a hard rock miner for a placer operation. Now everyone knows the expertise matters. Hard rock knowledge uncovers opportunities placer-only miners simply miss. After the $175 million vein discovery, the mining world took notice. Mining companies across the globe reached out to Chris for consulting contracts, hoping he could evaluate their placer operations for hidden hard rock potential. Universities invited him to speak to mining engineering students about cross-disciplinary approaches. The Yukon Mining Association even honored him with their Innovation in Mining Award for advancing the industry. The quiet professional had just revolutionized modern placer mining, showing that the most valuable team member might be the one whose background seems unrelated until they reveal opportunities you never knew existed. Subscribe to follow Chris's ongoing work developing the vein. If the first year produced over $20 million in profit, the coming years could be even more extraordinary as Chris's expertise unlocks more of the $175 million jackpot sitting beneath Parker's ground.